Okie dokie Loki. I apologize for not having uploaded a video in like God knows how long, but Dark Souls is. I'm gonna say it one more time. That anybody watching this video needs to go out and buy a copy right now. I've been playing that game for friggin' 40 hours or something, and it's so good. But I'm gonna go ahead and continue with my little my little Dashie. My bad. Well, here we go. It has been only 4 months since I brought the young Rainbow Dash into my home. I've done what little research I could on the matter, but I have come to no conclusions. I have no idea why she is here, and quite frankly, I don't even care anymore. These few months with her have been the most amazing time of my life. Aww. She has opened my heart up to love and joy, among other things. Right now, she sits next to me on the couch as I watch television. She seems to enjoy the morning cartoons on the local stations, and I myself have come to enjoying them. She acts much like a young child would. Then again, why wouldn't she? Another amazing feat is she has been learning to talk. I'm not much of a teacher, or for that matter, a parent, but I'm doing my best to help her learn to speak and read. I don't know how. Yawn. I don't know how, or even where to begin to attempt in teaching her to write. From the show they did it with their mouths, but I'll let that go for now. Once she's a little older, even if I have her that long, I'll do what I can to teach her. It used to be that a year would go by slowly. I would look forward to the new year in hopes of getting a fresh start. Now, though, I feel as if this year went by a little too quickly for me. I've decided, since I have no knowledge of her actual birth date, to make the day I found her, her birthday. September 17th. Oddly enough, that's the very same date that the second season of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic aired last year. I quit watching the show after Dashie came into my life. There was no reason for me to continue, and honestly, I don't have much time to myself anymore. It would be hard to hide me watching the show, and even harder to explain the situation if she were to ever see it, especially at her current age. She knew her name was Rainbow Dash, but I have come to calling her Pinky's pet name of Dashie. She has no problem with it. She can fully communicate with me now, as well as read English, and she's even starting to learn to write with, you guessed it, her mouth. I tried to invent some devices for her hoof so she could write, but it seems writing with her mouth is more natural than moving her hoof around. Oh, I can imagine that like being in a movie. Like, the guy builds some contraption, and aww, such a happy story. One thing now troubles me with her. Every day she sits at the window looking outside. I'm not worried about her being seen by passerbys. I'm on a dead-end street, so that's the least of my worries. Still, though, she doesn't say anything to me yet. I can see the hunger for fresh air in her eyes. I can't keep her in here her entire life. I keep talking like she's going to be here forever. That isn't true. One day, someday, she'll return home. Whether it'll be a simple poof and she's gone, or through some magical spell and Twilight shows up and takes her home to fix everything. In my heart, I hope that never happens, but in my head, I know it will. It's just a matter of when. I do hope to get her outside soon. I've been checking out some of the abandoned lots and former parks on my walks to and from work, seeing where the best location would to take her. Oddly enough, it seems the park I had played at growing up is the best option. That shall be it then. I'll take her to the park. How will I get her there? She's still relatively small, so she can be hidden inside a jacket or something. Tomorrow's supposed to be a nice day anyway. Sorry if I'm making you in the audience yawn as well. She did it. After 2 years in my care, and having absolutely no knowledge of flight myself, I helped her learn to fly. She's gotten quite big in only a couple of years, and it was getting hard to hide her when we walked to the park. I got so desperate to keep her hidden, I bought a dog costume for her to put on so she could walk there unnoticed. She was not happy, so I got some books from the library to read up on teaching birds to fly. I would have looked on the internet, but I fear she would become curious of it herself. There are a lot of horrors on the internet. She's not ready for it. I totally agree. In hindsight, it's bad enough she's experiencing television, but she's come to enjoy SpongeBob and NASCAR too. Oh my... Redneck Rainbow Dash. Too much for me to take that away from her. Back to the flying. I've been taking her to that old park for weeks, in hopes I could help her to learn how to fly. There's a large tree there, with branches sticking out over a sandbox. The perfect spot for her to practice. If she falls, I can't catch her, well, at least she'll have something remotely soft to land on. She fell a lot. I knew she would fall a lot. There were many scrapes, cuts, and bruises toward her goal, but finally, after many weeks of work, she flew. It was only a short distance, about 50 feet, but she still did it. She's a little scraped up, but she's beaming with pride. Maybe now she could fly overhead so that the few people on the ground don't notice her. I'll have to see if she can manipulate clouds like she could in the show, but it would make it much easier for her to take her places. Then she can hide on a cloud as we go to the park. Another thing that has been brought to my attention, she asked me about having her own room. I got to thinking, and I realized the house does have a spare bedroom, though my parents had filled it with my old school stuff from my younger years, as well as several of my old toys. She might enjoy them, though she's getting older. I'm not sure how entertaining they will be for her. If she has her own room, I can get her own things so that she can feel somewhat normal. She's pretty smart for a filly, and knows about the difference between our species. But she still knows nothing about her origin. She's not ready yet. The only thing I can do is keep her happy. I only wish I had a way to buy her the things she wants. Aww. She's like a daughter to him. If you told me 4 years ago I'd be taking care of a cartoon, rainbow-colored pony, I'd call you insane. I probably am in all reality, but I don't care. I'm happy, she's happy. Today's a day for celebration. For today, my little Dashie got her cutie mark. I honestly didn't know how to tackle that fact. She didn't even know what it was until I explained it to her. Now she's even more ecstatic than before. It was a normal park outing, but this time she decided she wanted to see how high she could get. I had limited her to how high she could fly, but honestly I can't do anything about that when she goes up there. I can't fly, so the most I could do is tell her to be careful. Somewhere she got it in her head to see just how fast she could fly, probably due to her being into NASCAR. Oh! Probably due to her being in NASCAR and, well, a general racing fan. For some time she was trying to make up tricks and stunts of her own, giving them names. I'd just sit on the bench I'd fixed up and cheer her on. No one was ever around anymore. In fact, on that block, I think the last person left over a year ago. There are rumors the entire area is going to be brought out by some company, however, and all this turned into a large manufacturing area. I don't know how I feel about that, but it's not important now. Right now, I'm so overcome with joy that my Dashie now knows her place. Granted, this isn't her world. She is still the same Rainbow Dash from the show, regardless of how I raised her. She has that same spunk and attitude from the show, and now she has her cutie mark. Anyway, she climbed to quite a height in an attempt to gain speed from a fall. Well, all the right things factored for her. How she positioned herself, her mental focus, and possibly me on the ground watching and cheering her on, but she did it. She broke the sound barrier and created a sonic rain boom overhead. Now, I didn't even imagine it was possible to accomplish such a feat in my world. I knew you could break the sound barrier, but actually do the rainbow part too? My mind was blown. So, the initial explosion brought upon many broken windows and set off car alarms in the next county. I quickly rounded her up and we rushed home before anyone could arrive at the park. I was lucky none of my windows were broken. The rest of the day was spent celebrating. It just so happened that today was her 4th birthday. I have no way of knowing how old she actually was when I got her, so I just started over. I would have bought a cake, but due to the boom, all the businesses were closed and needed new windows, so we made a cake on our own. Apparently, the fanfiction writers got it right. She can't bake at all. Granted, I'm not the best myself, but it was still a mess. But we had fun. She enjoyed herself, and she's happy. Therefore, I'm happy. That was her highlight of the day, mine was just moments ago. She has now come accustomed to sleeping in her own room versus with me on the couch. I actually stopped sleeping in my room and kept her company in the living room until recently. Now I can sleep on my own bed once more, but I keep my door unlocked, so if she needs me, she can get me. I just tucked her into bed and told her goodnight when she said it. Good night, Daddy. I love you. Aww. Oh. 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 I haven't been on the internet in what, 3 years now? I don't know how the My Little Pony thing online is doing, or what memes are still alive or not, but damn it all, I'm gonna say it 'cause it's true. My heart exploded twice. For the first time, not only did she call me Daddy, which she has done on occasion, but she even said, I love you. For a moment, I didn't know what to say or what to do. I've never been in this sort of situation before, but I remembered what my mother and father used to do. So I leaned down and kissed her on the forehead and told her the same thing. Good night, my little Dashie. I love you too. Aww. Aww. She smiled at me, then closed her eyes to sleep. I walked out, turned off her light, making sure her SpongeBob nightlight was on, of course, closed the door, and sat down on the couch. I haven't moved for an hour now. Aw, he's so overcome. Aw. Oh. I'm so lost in thought. The few times she's called me Daddy, I didn't think anything of it. I could picture why she called me that. Being with her so much made me accept as part of taking care of her. But tonight when she said those 3 words, the realization finally sunk into my heart. I am her daddy. Ho 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 ho. She considers me her daddy. Quite frankly, I consider her my daughter. Even though we are totally different species, I still love her with all my heart, and it has taken her to speak those words to me. And it has taken her to speak those words to me for me to finally realize that. I think I've finally done it. I have broken my hard shell that had formed when my parents died. I let a sweet little filly get into my life. I gave her a home to live in, food to eat, and now a daddy to love. She's given me hope, love, compassion, and now something I'd never utter. A daughter. I still speculate when the time is going to arise that she goes back to Equestria, and each day it gets harder for me to imagine when that actually happens. I just hope she never forgets me, because I will never forget her. Oh, oh, this is so cute. This story's making me tear up just from happiness. I believe Dashie's now at her full size, rounding in at about 3 feet tall. She's fully grown, though she is still only 10 years according to my math. I believe she's actually more along the lines of 14 or 15, possibly in actual years, so we celebrated 5 missed birthdays and officially moving day. That's right, moving day. We moved from my parents' house. Thanks to me finally saving up enough money, plus getting lucky at a casino, we bought a nice house 100 miles away from the city. It's got a lot of open land. There isn't another house within 5 miles, and it's just me and her. That would be so nice. Can you imagine that? Like, even if that's like your fiance or something. Like, you just go out in the country, buy a house, man, set up your own satellite tower, get this godly internet connection, and that'd be really nice. Now she can fly all around she wants. Now she can fly around all she wants, whenever she wants. She's truly happy, though she does miss the old park. It's gone now, along with everything else left in the area. A large business bought all the land up, flattened it, and built a large factory there. It was an amazing boom to the economy, and people are starting to build homes again. I'm glad, but it just wasn't for us. That amount of people would hinder her going outside, and I'm not going to force her to stay inside all day unless it's raining out. I've gotten a new job, one that pays much more than my old one. Dashie even talked about getting a job, but then she remembered what I told her. The look on her face was heartbreaking. We were enjoying a cake we made, which I must add we have improved upon that skill, when she brought it up. I jokingly said she can't due to her being a pony, and I laughed. She remained silent. My God, I'm horrible. I just laughed because my daughter is different. Well, I do the same thing. I mean, if she took it the wrong way, I'd comfort her. I'd be like, well, I'm just kidding. I mean, I do that to my friends all the time. but I see where he's coming from, but I apologized for hours, and even though she says she understands, I know she's still hurt. Luckily, I have a way to fix this. Due to the sheer size of the property, it involves a lot of cutting of grass. Tomorrow, I will modify the lawnmower for her use so that she can have a job. I'll even pay her so that she can buy her own stuff if she wants. Though I'd have to get it for her, she can still actually say she worked for something. According to the show, she was a weather pony, and I don't have her mess with Mother Nature unless it's a dire emergency, so there isn't really any job to be had there. I still can't believe I've had her for 10 years now. My God, time goes so fast. I wish it would slow down so that I could have more time with her. I don't know when, but I have a sudden feeling our time together is running out. All of this has been too good to be true. Today has been the worst time of my life, even more than my parent. Blech. Today has been the worst time of my life, even more than when my parents died. Due to events that I could not prepare for, Dashie found out the truth before I could tell her myself. She knows what she is. A made-up cartoon character from a kid's television show. She is mad, no, upset, beyond all thought. She's locked herself in a room, but I know my daughter. She didn't stay in there for long. She opened her window and flew off, probably into a tree, to sulk in her sorrow. I'm a monster. I should have told her sooner. I just wasn't sure when would be the right time. Now, we're both suffering for my carelessness. I thought getting cable would be a good thing. Give her some more shows to watch, but I didn't realize that we got the hub station. I wasn't even aware it was still up. I find to my surprise that My Little Pony is even airing. It had stopped at 8 seasons, but it was still repeated. I remember I walked in from New York. I remember I walked in from work with some groceries, set them in the kitchen, and walked into the living room. That's when I saw it. Yay! She did it! Fluttershy had screamed, jumping with joy as Applejack, Twilight, and Pinkie Pie all sat on the clouds with dumbfounded looks on their faces. My heart sank. I knew this episode. I remembered this episode. My heart sank. I knew this episode. I remembered this episode. Even after saying nothing for 12 years, I still remember that damn episode. In that episode, Rainbow Dash performs the Sonic Rain Boom, much like how my Dashie had years ago. At the time, I was still holding my keys, and I dropped them. They clanged on the wood floor. If she didn't know I was home before, she knew now. How long? Dashie asked me, no emotion in her voice. How long have you known about this? Dashie turned to look at me. She had been crying, and her mane was in even worse shape than normal. How long have you known about this? I couldn't help it. A tear ran down my cheek as she yelled at me. This was the first time in all these years that she had raised her voice to me, and I deserved every bit of it. You can't be a perfect parent, man. Oh, you don't... I mean, if I was you, I would have told her about it sooner. Like, she's got to know. She's got to learn to deal with it. If she does it at a young age, then it'll be easier for her because her brain's wired easily. Like, that's what I don't get. I don't understand why parents never tell their children that they're adopted until they're, like, older. That is so... Furthermore, I don't understand why the children get all upset when they find out that they're adopted. They're like, oh, I'm adopted. You guys don't really let me. Obviously, they care about you enough to take you in. And I don't know, that's just something that gets on my nerves. Anyways, main character, you can't be too down on yourself. You can't be a perfect parent. So I sat down, turned off the television, and told her everything. I told her about the show, about finding her, and answered any other questions she had for me. There were a lot. Most of them stemmed from the show, to which I simply told her what I truly believed. That though she's Rainbow Dash from the show, that she herself is a different pony from the cartoon. I tried to explain it to her, but her bullheadedness took over as she continued to lash at me. I took it all. I deserved it all. I've been keeping that horrible secret from her for far too long. She's now a fully grown mare, capable of taking care of herself if she were in Equestria. Here, I treat her still like she was my little filly. It's been wrong of me, but I couldn't help it. I didn't want this to ever happen, but I knew it would. I should have done what was right, but I didn't. It was only a matter of time before she found out, and she knew that she was different. After our argument, she flew upstairs into her bedroom and slammed her door shut. I checked on her an hour later, and no response told me she had flown off. I can only hope that she comes back, or at least, if she doesn't, she stays away from any other people. If anything, I hope some sort of portal opens up and she goes back to her world and never has to think of me again. Aww. All I can say to her at this point is that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It's been 3 days since Dashie left. The night of her departure, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I went for a walk. I wasn't sure where I was going or how long I walked, but that's what I did. I walked. Now, 3 days later, I'm finding myself out here walking once again. I've been out for roughly 3 hours, and it's only 5 in the afternoon. It has grown dark. A storm is brewing, and soon I will be getting hit by the brunt of it. I turn around to begin my walk home, though I don't rush. My energy these past few days has been non-existent, as I've barely even eaten anything more than some toast. I feel so lost as I walk through the woods that surround my home. No. Our home. It's as much hers as it is mine, and nothing will change that. The rain has begun, but I do not quicken my pace. I just walk, much like I had done so long ago. The distant memories of all my pain and sorrow before Dashie began to seep into my mind. I haven't had these thoughts in years. The pats of water on these tree leaves help keep me distracted. It's a peaceful sound, one you would never hear in the city. The rain is picking up as my shirt is now soaking wet. I'm sure I'll be sick tomorrow morning, but I don't care. I've been sick for 3 days now, a mental illness that's been tearing me apart. My daughter is somewhere out there, hurting, needing some comfort and warmth in this rain. I just wish I could be there for her. Even though she may not want me to, she may not ever want to see me again from how she acted. I don't blame her. It must be such a horrible thing finding out you're from the past like... It must be such a horrible thing finding out your past like that. I can't even imagine what it would be like. I know Dashie is a strong mare, and she can pull through, but I always know how she holds a grudge at times. I'm not sure that even if she did come back that she'd ever forgive me, or more importantly, if I could even forgive myself. It's now pouring out here. The tree canopies are barely holding back the torrential rain as I'm hammered by the water droplets. I stop to look around. I find my bearings and return home. I'm not lost. Most of this area is easy to traverse once you get used to it. It's just I'm also looking for Dashie as I walk. It's the reason I'm walking in the forest in the first place. I press on, keeping a steady pace through this rain. Suddenly I spy a large, thick tree. Its stature sticks out amongst the rest. And from looking at the barely wet grass underneath, I can tell that its many branches are holding back even this hard rain. I need to take a break, so I walk under the tree and sit down. The grass is barely wet, with only a few small droplets making their ways down. This is the kind of tree I'd imagine Dashie would hide under in this rain. I wish it to be true, but I saw no sign of her as I approached. I close my eyes and lean against the tree hulk as I think about my life. Our life. Together as a father and daughter. We have grown so much as a family, and have been fortunate enough to have very few fights. None of them were as heartbreaking as the one 3 days ago. Oh, poor guy. I feel a tear running down my cheeks as I imagine Dashie's face again. The anger in her eyes, mixed with the confusion, it just tears me apart. Oh my god. I want so badly to make things right. We'll go back in time and stop it from happening. but I can't do either of those. What's done is done. I'm so sorry. I speak out loud, not caring for no one is listening. I'm alone in these woods, besides the wildlife. In this rain they are hiding as well, and the ones that are far from being as such as I. I'm just so sorry, Dashie. I continue to cry as I keep my eyes closed and leaning against the tree. The rain continues to pour around me. An occasional drop hits my head, but I don't care. Crack. I open my eyes from the sudden sound, and I look to my left. I'm shocked at what I see before me. Looking at me with teary eyes herself, Dashie. My little Dashie, covered in burrs and tree sap along her mane and tail, is standing a couple feet from me. She's wet, with both rain and tears. I hadn't heard her approach. Then again, being a Pegasus, she was very quiet and light on her hooves. She doesn't speak, and instead walks over to me, not caring what noises she makes under her hooves. I don't move. I just sit on the ground and watch with my own wet eyes. She looks so horrible and yet so beautiful at the same time. Her coat would need a good cleaning, but that was the least of my worries. Without a word, she sits next to me, not making eye contact as she looks off into the woods. I can only look at her, wishing to hug her tightly and never let her go again, but I hold back, knowing that it would be too sudden. Finally, she is the first to speak. I heard you. Her voice then got quiet as she whispers. And I'm sorry too. I simply smile through my tears. Her stubborn attitude was still showing as she always had difficulties apologizing. Dashie, you have nothing to be sorry about. It's not my fault. As simple as that. It seems my point doesn't get across as she finally looks with a sorrow. It seems my point doesn't get across as she finally looks to me with a sorrow face. Oh! Oh! Dad? Oh my God. Dad? Do you still love me? Now is the time to act. I reach over and grab her, holding her in a tight hug. Of course, Dashie. I've always loved you. I still love you no matter what. Not even a small fight such as ours could ever change that. She returns the hug. As we sit there and cry together, we continue to apologize. Me for the truth and her for raising her voice and storming out. After some time, the rain subsides and we remained under the tree. Dad? Can we go home now? I need a shower. Bad. I let out a chuckle, and she too laughs as I stand. We make our trip back home. She's smiling again. I am too. I've been giving it some thought, and I think I shall give her birthday present a little early. A ticket to the Indy 500. Yes, I'm taking her to the Indy 500. She can simply sit on some clouds and watch while I'm in the stands. I didn't even have to get her a ticket, but she needs some sort of reminder of her visit. I'm sure she will have a blast, and though I don't expect this to make everything right, I can only hope it cheers her up some. With some time, I'm sure she will relax and settle down about her being in the cartoon. She's a smart mare, and she knows she's real, not that made-up pony from the cartoon. I can only help push her to believing that, and hope she does the same to me. There's a point in every parent's life when they have to let their child go. Whether it be for the better or for the worse, it must happen at some point. I now sit here in my living room, by myself, sulking over photographs of my distant memories of me and Dashie. On her 20th birthday, I had planned a special outing to go see a flight show. As we prepared to leave, there was a knocking on the door. Never in the years we had lived there had anyone knocked at the door. Hell, we hadn't even made arrangements if someone did show up. I simply told her to go to her room while I took care of it. Once I heard her door shut,
Calmly and collectively, I asked who it was knocking, expecting some stranger possibly lost on his or her travels. A female voice spoke in such an elegant yet attention-grabbing tone, I felt myself listening to her with the uttermost attention. She asked if she may come in, a question I had normally refused within a heartbeat, and yet something about her voice was so reminiscent. I couldn't help but walk over and open the door. When I first saw the figure standing on my porch, I wasn't sure if I was dreaming or hallucinating. Standing there was the radiant and majestic Princess Celestia. I was at loss of words, fighting both emotions of brony excitement, which I had only felt when I first found Dashie, and emotions of sorrow, for I knew what this meant. She stood there another second looking at me. We matched each other on eye level, her body being the size of nearly a full-grown horse. I stepped back and allowed her to enter. What caught me off guard next was the 5 other ponies that followed suit. First Twilight Sparkle, the rest of the gang. Applejack, Rarity, Fluttershy, and lastly Pinkie Pie bounced in.
Ooh, so this is what an alien house looks like on the inside. Oh, you have a kitchen! I'm starving. Are you starving? I can make us some...
She was stopped by Applejack's hoof. Easy there, Sugar Cube. We're just here for Rainbow, so we ain't got no time for any eating. Applejack's stomach growled. No matter how hungry we are. I still wasn't sure how to completely react to all this. But not wanting to be rude, I offered some leftovers. We have some leftovers from dinner last night. You're more than welcome to some. Pinkie took that as an okay and ran into the kitchen with much vigor. It seemed I did not even need to tell her where anything was. She instantly knew where everything was placed. Factor it to either dumb luck or simply being Pinkie Pie. I choose the latter. I'll go keep an eye on her, Applejack said, walking to join the hyper pony. As she passed, she tipped her hat to me. I was finding it odd that the ponies were not more hesitant around a creature such as me. Then again, the same could be said for myself, but having Dashie for 15 years, I grew used to having such a thing around me. Now I have 5 other ponies and a full-size goddess horse looking at me with the same amount of curiosity that I held for them. There was a moment of silence as I watched the 2 mares enter my kitchen and begin to rummage through my fridge. I'm quite surprised, Celestia began. I had expected a little more resistance to us entering. Why? I know who you all are. Celestia nodded. Ah, so you do know then. That you are fictional characters from a children's TV show, then yes. Otherwise, why you are all here, I have no clue. The last part I lied, hoping to keep my mind at ease. I knew the reason, but I wanted to ignore it. Oh, I think you do know. My heart fell into pits of my stomach. I did know. She was straight to the point about it. During all those years, I had anticipated this moment, but as time drug on, that thought slowly dispelled until it was just nothing more than a minor nip in my mind. That's when it always happens, you know. When everything is finally perfect and you don't have to worry anymore. Excuse me, sir, Twilight began, but from what we could figure out, Rainbow Dash should be here. Is she? I looked to the purple mare. I wanted to tell her no, but I knew it was fruitless. She's upstairs in her room. In her room? Rarity asked, surprised. Yes, Dashie is in her room. I wasn't sure who was knocking, and I didn't want her to be spotted. Dashie? My, you are that friendly with her already? Rarity continued. I wanted to punch that pony so hard right then. How she responded insulted me. Friendly? That's not even the beginning of it. And I should be asking you ponies as to what the hell you did? Celestia raised a brow, taken back by my change of tone. You see, my student... I know who she is. Get to the chase. I was very short with her. As furious as I wanted to know why they'd send Dashie as a filly to some other world. Twilight bit her lip, as her teacher continued. Yes, of course. She was working on a spell to help the weather team with some storm development. Well, they made slightly too large of a storm, and when Twilight used her magic to try and dispel it, it shot a lightning bolt meeting her magic. Rainbow Dash was unfortunate enough to be within reach of the blast, and it engulfed her and sent her to, well, here. So, We're here to retrieve her. Simple enough, I'd imagine. Before I could answer, Dashie called from her bedroom. Dad? Is everything all right? That second, my heart stopped beating as I looked from pony to pony. Each one's face was in pure shock and confusion. They recognized the voice as her Rainbow Dash, but she said, Dad. Excuse me, Sugar Cube, Applejack started, returning from the kitchen. Did I just hear Rainbow Dash call you Dad? Before I could answer, Celestia started up again. Do you care to explain? I was lost. So many things were running through my mind at once. There was only one thing I could do, and I had to do it, but I knew I wouldn't like it. Go into the living room and make yourselves comfortable. I'll be right down with her. I didn't allow a response. I turned around and walked up the stairs slowly. Dad? Yeah, Dashie. I'm coming up. I looked back down to the group of ponies as they watched me ascend. We need to talk. So that's what I did. I told her who was down there, and that they were there to take her back. She had seen the cartoon every so often after some time, and found the wacky adventures entertaining. She had given up any thought that the Rainbow Dash in the show was her, and only viewed it as another cartoon. As I talked to her, and explained that those very ponies she didn't believe in were downstairs, she brushed me off with some laughs. She didn't believe me, and thought I was playing some joke on her, so I took her down into the living room. Dashie! Pinky shouted, jumping onto her cyan friend. Dashie was quick to shove the pink pony off. Hey, get away from me! She was taken back by the sudden amount of ponies filling our living room. They all looked at her with worried expressions as why she shoved her closest friend away. Pinky's cotton candy mane went straight as she looked in confusion. You don't recognize me, do you? No, or any of you, Dashie continued. It hurt me in so many ways. I knew these were her friends, but so many things happened differently that she didn't know the truth fully, and neither did they, so I had to explain to them. I started. Dashie, take a seat, please, so I can talk to them. She did just that, in her recliner. The entire time she looked at all the ponies who occupied the couches and the center rug in front of the fireplace. It was time, but first I had to start with a question. How long ago was she sent over here? The question caught them off guard, but Twilight cleared her throat as she spoke. About 15 days ago. Why? I was speechless. 15 days ago? Shit! She's been with me for 15 years! That means a day in their world meant a year here. Well, I continued. It's been a lot more time than that here. How long? Twilight asked. 15 years. All the ponies besides Celestia had their mouths agape. That don't explain why she don't know us, Applejack said. Well, that's the thing. When I found her, she was a filly. Come again? From my math, I think she was no older than 4 or 5 years old. Now Celestia looked surprised. You mean to tell us that you have been taking care of Rainbow Dash for 15 years, since she was a small filly? She asked. I simply nodded, and looked over to Dashie with an expressionless look on her face. She is... I started, but I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. I know it's not true. God, I wish it was, but I understand. The dad now makes sense. Celestia cut me off, holding the stern look about her face. She was thinking, trying to piece together in her mind what had possibly happened. I chalked it up to the magic. Being unstable possibly reverted her in age. For a few moments it was quiet, besides the breathing of 7 ponies and myself. Finally, it was Dashie who broke the silence. So, what's supposed to happen now? That sounded more like Applejack. So, what's supposed to happen now? I looked to the princess, trying to read her face. No matter how good I had gotten at reading Dashie's face, Princess Celestia had the best poker face I had ever seen. I had no clue what she was thinking. or feeling at this moment. Well, it's quite simple. Twilight, Celestia looked to her pupil, who instantly perked up hearing her name. Do you still remember that memory spell from the Discord incident? Twilight simply nodded as she stood from the couch and hopped onto the floor. No! No! They're gonna... No! I knew what was going on. What Celestia had in mind. She wanted Twilight to either erase her memories and start them from anew. Or, possibly, I hope she just simply wanted to give Dashie her memories of their friendships and time in Ponyville. I wasn't sure what to do. I felt it was right. I knew it was right. And needed to be done. I had been telling myself that for 15 years as I waited for this moment. But there was something I needed to say before it happened. These ponies were going to take my Dashie away, and I had some words to speak before that could happen. No, wait. Please. I started. Twilight stopped and looked to the sun goddess. Just give me a moment with her, please. All I ask, since this is the last time that we'll ever see each other again. I'd given up holding back my tears. At this point I was openly crying. The ponies could tell I was hurting, and Dashie didn't look to be faring too well either. So figuring it wasn't good to prolong the inevitable, I walked over to the chair Dashie sat in, knelt down to meet her eye level as I spoke. Dashie, oh God, here we go. My little Dashie. I love you with all my heart. You have done wonders to open me up from the man I once was. I had to pause a moment to settle down. You have brought me so much joy. You have brought me so much joy in my life that I can't possibly ever thank you for. Oh, so sad. At this point, Dashie too had begun to cry. That only made it even worse for me. These 15 years we have had together, talking, playing, flying, all those have been so special to me. I just want you to know that I will forever love you. It doesn't matter if we aren't biologically related or from different worlds. I don't care what you may ever think of me, or if you ever even remember me, but right now, you being my Dashie, I want you. I poked her on the chest, to physically show I was talking to her, to know that fact. If there's ever a problem that happens, and you need me, don't hesitate to find a way to get to me, okay? I tried to laugh, passing off the last part as a joke. It worked, only slightly, as we both continued to cry. I could also hear some sniffling from behind me. I could only picture Pinkie Pie crying like that. I could only picture Pinkie Pie crying much like she had at the end of the second episode in Season 1 after Luna and Celestia had been reunited. Do I have to go? Daddy? It had been a few years since she had actually called me Daddy. Most of the time it was simply Dad, or Pops. It felt good, knowing she still cared for me enough to call me Daddy, much like the first time she had said it to me, so many years ago. I simply nodded my head, as I stood up. Before I could fully grasp my balance, she jumped onto me and hugged me tight. Aww! I could feel her tears on the back of my neck, and I returned the embrace. It's your actual home, Dashie. You don't belong here. You need to go back to where you belong. Ah! Oh my God, I can't even read this sentence. I belong here with you.
hurts so much to say. But I had to keep her convinced that this was the right thing to do. Oh my god, there are like tears running down my face. No. You don't. You are limited here. Only able to fly around the house. You have no friends or other ponies to relate to. I was only taking care of you until this time would come, but I never thought it would be this painful. I remained quiet for a few more minutes as we held each other tight. She didn't fight back or want to resist what was happening, which told me she knew as well as what must be done. Oh my god. I'm gonna stop reading this. I love you, Daddy. And I love you too, my little Dashie. We separated as she lowered herself to the ground. At this point, all the other ponies had tears flowing, even the goddess herself. She had seemed quite smug about knowing what had happened, the time difference and such, but it was evident that the age difference was a shock. She most likely had expected to find 35-year-old Rainbow Dash, but instead found my 20-year-old Dashie. Twilight stepped closer to Rainbow Dash, sniffling once before her horn glowed. I knew what was coming. It hurt so much, but I knew it was right. It was what had to happen for her, for her friends, and in a twisted way, for me. Now I could know she was actually going home, and would be around her friends who could fly wherever and whenever she wanted to, without any limitations. She could enjoy friends' company once more. Wait! I looked from the floor to Dashie as she backed away from Twilight. Before I go, I want to get something. Before any pony or myself could protest, she flew up to her room. She was quick and returned with a shoebox and her front hooves. I wasn't sure if she would be allowed to take anything back with her, and half expected the princess to protest, but she remained quiet, allowing Dashie to quickly write down something on a piece of paper and set it on the coffee table. She looked back at me, still crying, but with a smile on her face. I knew she had realized this was how it must end, and I knew that as well. The box, from my guessing, was probably her most cherished items that she kept for if she had to leave. Though it hurt me thinking about it, I hope she had a picture of us. Aww. Then again, I also hoped not, for she would be forced to remember me a world away, and that hurt just as much as everything else. I'm so sorry, Rainbow Dash, Twilight started. I honestly wish there was another way to do this, but I wish I didn't have to do this, but can't... Dashie started. Can't he come with me? The stuttering in her voice told me she was simply speaking her mind, not actually asking the question. Twilight shook her head, unable to keep eye contact with her friend as she cried before her. Rainbow Dash, Princess Celestia started. He cannot join you in our world, much like how you cannot stay in his. This was all never meant to be. And the world around us was not made to house you. And yet, Celestia looked to me, smiling, and began to look around our living room. All the photos of us together, all her knickknacks and belongings strewn around the room. And yet, something beautiful happened here. Something I cannot explain at all. When I realized where you ended up, I expected the worst. I figured you to be ruined, tainted, and tarnished from this world's cruelty. But now, I see that it's quite the opposite, that here, this man that has raised you, shows me that you are in good hooves, or hands, as it were. Dashie sniffed once, beginning to calm down as Celestia's words sunk in. Celestia then returned to looking at me, still smiling. I cannot speak for you, but from what I see in front of me, the amount of love you both share and have shared together tells me that you raised her as if she was your own. Even with the obvious differences, you still raised her unbiased as to her species, her origins. You raised her as your daughter, which only makes this entire ordeal so much worse. I absorbed her words, as well as the other ponies in the room.
So, I say to you, dear sir, please do not hold my student accountable for this. It was never her, nor any pony else's intention to cause this much hurt to either of you. If you must blame some pony, I would ask you to blame me. I am the one that helped bring them here, to take Rainbow Dash back to her home, away from here.
I just couldn't look at any of them, my heavy breathing breaking down with sobs. My mind was just going on her own, thinking back at all the things Dashie and I did together. I took a deep breath as I spoke. Just how could I blame some pony for sending Rainbow Dash here? I sniffled, then cleared my throat as I continued. I nearly choked up as I searched for the words to express myself. I just... Deep breaths. These have been the best 15 years of my life. So, if anything, I feel quite the opposite. I wish to thank you, Twilight, and the rest of you. Thank you for what you did, though not intentional. Thank you for all that came out of this. And finally, thank you for all my years, my life, and my love with Dashie. I tried to smile at Twilight between the sobs, but she looked on the edge of tears herself. I could only look away before she cried herself. Celestia then stood from the rug she laid on and walked over to me as I stood. No need for thanks, good sir. Instead, I wish to thank you for taking care of one of my little ponies. She would never have made it without someone much like yourself. Celestia closed her eyes and then leaned her horn towards me. I didn't move. I wasn't sure what was going on as she touched her horn to my head. I felt a sudden warmth rush through my body. She drew her horn away, still smiling, as she stepped back. Thank you. Then another pony spoke up. Thank you, sir, Twilight added, finally able to speak through her tears. Thank you, Applejack said. Thank you, darling, for caring for our Rainbow Dash, Rarity spoke. Thank you, Fluttershy quietly said. Thanks! Pinkie shouted as she sprung up to me and hugged me. Aww. I couldn't help but laugh a little from her extrinsic attitude. Better yet, the rumors on the internet were true. Her mane did smell just like cotton candy. I remained silent as I nodded, then looked back to Dashie, who also wore a smile on her face. The ponies all returned to Dashie as Twilight's horn began to glow once more. Are you ready now, Rainbow? Twilight asked again, returning to Dashie and starting her magic. She simply nodded, and she closed her eyes and awaited the inevitable. It seemed time slowed down as Twilight's horn approached Dashie's forehead. My mind began forcing random memories of us together. I can vividly remember the splashing of the bathtub from her bath times, before she showered herself. I can still taste our many failed attempts at baking and cooking in general. I still smell the outdoors from our times at the park, where she was able to spread her wings. There were so many memories that I simply had to shut off my brain so I could keep myself focused on Dashie. A single tear ran down her left cheek, as I could see her eyes moving under her lids. Her mind was doing the same thing mine was, forcing our fondest memories all at once. For this would be the last time we ever saw one another. Finally, Twilight's horn touched Dashie's forehead. There was a bright light, and when I could see again, they were all gone. All the ponies had disappeared. Through my tears, I sighed in relief. It felt wrong, but it also felt right. She was now the normal Rainbow Dash that belonged in Ponyville. I stood in the living room for several more minutes,
just staring blankly at the empty floor that Dashie had been standing on just moments before. Then, I looked around the room and took notice at my surroundings. I noticed things were different. Pictures that once held images of me and Dashie no longer hung from the walls. Many of the random personal items of hers were scattered around the living room, were gone as well. I was confused, so I ran up to her bedroom to look. When I opened the door, what I saw instead of her NASCAR and airshow posters mixed with her bed and other furnishings was a simple office, a cheap desk with a computer on it, and an ugly-looking potted plant.
Oh. Poor guy. That poor guy. That poor guy. He was... It's happy but sad at the same time. He went... He did his best. And he bought her all those things. And he helped her learn. Oh my god. This poor guy. He just had his whole life taken away. Just gone. This poor guy. It took me some time to digest what I was experiencing before I realized what must have happened. It made sense, but it still stung me in my chest. To make sure nothing happened between worlds, Celestia must have removed any existence of Dashie ever being here, being with me. 15 years, all down the drain. Oh, that's what I just said. As her existence was wiped from the planet, I felt as though those years were for naught. Wasted, as I wouldn't be able to remember her. And yet, my memories still lingered of her. I could remember everything as if it were still vivid, as if it were still as vivid as when they happened. Then the thought clicked. She did something with her magic when she touched me with her horn. Did she protect my memories so that I would remember her? Had she done the same for Dashie? I walked back downstairs and into the living room while I thought. On the coffee table sat a book. I recognized it. It was my photo album. I sat down on my couch, opened it up to the first page, and there was my mother and father with me, shortly after I was born. I continued to flip through them, looking at my own past. There was a gap after my parents died, but to keep my mother's dream going, I had picked it back up, making false pictures of happy times and enjoying my life to stick into her book of memories. Then, I opened up to a piece of paper. I picked it up and immediately recognized the handwriting, or more correct, mouth writing. I speculated this was what she had written down before she left. Dad, for 15 years you took care of me. For 15 years you loved me, played with me, and made sure I enjoyed my life in a world not meant to house me. I'm not a man of many words, but even though I told you this in person, I felt you needed a written version of it so you will know it was all real. Oh my god. Those 3 words. How's that quote go? The words that are hardest to say are the words that mean the most. Those 3... I love you, Daddy. I can't even cry anymore, like... I'm making the sounds, but there's no tears. You helped shape me into the mayor I am now. I'm not sure what's going to happen, if I'll ever remember any of this or not, but I want you to know that you did a darn good job of raising me, even if I was a bit stubborn at times and short with you during others. With Celestia's permission, I hope to allow you to keep our photos, our memories, with you so that you will never forget. Again, I love you, and thank you.
Your little daughter always. Your little Dashie forever. Oh, Rainbow Dash. I set the note back into the page, flattening it with my hand as I felt the dried tear marks littering the paper. I read the note over and over again until I had it memorized. Then, I turned the page. I was greeted with Dashie's Philly smile. Oh! Yes! So now I sit here, looking through my photo album of our time together. Her first bath, her first words, her first drawing, even her first preened feather, all in this book of memories. Everything else in the house is gone, but what I had put into this book still remains. I don't dare ever change that either, but I will continue to add to it, to show that those years with her helped not only shape herself, but helped shape me as well. I am a new man from what I was 15 years ago, changed, given another chance by a sheer miracle of fortunate events that transpired from somewhere I can't even speculate. If I had never gone back and checked that box, if I had done something different than I had, could have changed everything between us. I guess I'm lucky that it all worked out. I can gladly say that I've achieved my parents' only wish, for me to be happy. Though I am saddened, I am still happy for the time I had with her. I now sit alone in this empty house, staring at my mother's rainbow picture with a smile plastered on my face. Every time I see it, I think of Dashie. I should be crying. I should feel horrible and want nothing but my daughter back, and yet I feel relieved to know that everything is all right. She didn't run away or leave on bad terms. She's gone, home, to where she belongs, and is safe. I look back down to my photo album, turning to the page after our most recent photo. The pages are blank. I still have a lot of life ahead of me, and I plan to make the best of it. For myself, and for my little Dashie. The end.
Oh my God. Oh my Celestia. That I don't even have words right now. I don't even have words. Who wrote this? I forget who wrote this. Written by Rob Caccarin 53. Freaking, oh my God. You are a brilliant man. This story. If somebody knows this person personally, I want you to send him my reading so that he can hear this personal thank you to him for writing such a beautiful story. This story, I feel changed by it. I feel changed. The emotions that I experienced in this story have changed. I don't know how. Maybe it's just going to be a little something different. Like, maybe I'll start treating everybody in my life with a little more respect. Like, I feel like I've done something wrong all these years. Something about Rob. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to everyone else who suggested that I read this, because you were right. That was sad. That was life-changing. Thank you all.